Please listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
And this is Practical Bass, where each week Dave and I pick a topic of interest to you, the working bass player, and we look at it from different angles and sort of dissect it and dive into the details and hopefully expose some knowledge and drop some wisdom out there that will help you elevate your gigs and your gear to the next level. It's really easy to get in contact with us. If you're enjoying the podcast or you'd like to make a suggestion or a comment, give us some feedback. It's very easy. You can email us directly at podcast@practicalbass.com. You can also visit the website at practicalbass.com, where you can find an archive of all of our past episodes. You can also give us feedback through our contact form on the website. We can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, Twitter, all of the socials. We're on all of the socials. I feel confident in saying, and we're not hard to reach. So just look for Practical Bass, and we'd love to hear from you. What are we going to talk about today, Dave?
Today we're talking about how to make our practice space more practical practice space.
I like it. A practical bass practice space.
Yeah.
That was remarkably poetic, actually. Now that I think about it, I'm going to write a poem about it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. I was just going to start. All
Oh,
right.
were you?
You're right.
You were ready to go.
I was going to go.
You were going to freestyle on it.
I was going to yeah. Spoken word on practical. See, I already messed it up. Never mind.
Yeah. Beat poets, we are not.
But we can talk about practice space and how to make that like an enjoyable experience and something that's efficient and very just ways that we can kind of tweak where we spend a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully everybody out there is, you're doing practice on your own. We've talked about, I think in the past, if you go back to season 1, we talked about rehearsing and being a professional, and hopefully people are using their practice space to practice, right? And then show up at rehearsal and you're good to go, as opposed to going to rehearsal to learn the tunes.
Right.
You want a practice space where you can actually become a better bass player. And then that way, when you show up to rehearsal, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you think about when you think about an effective practice space?
First, I start with like where you are, where you're spending your time, like really where your butt is. Like what is like.
No, that's right. That's right.
Being if you're going to spend time there, right? If you're going to sit down for an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever that time is, like it should be comfortable and it should be like ergonomically correct. It should feel right.
Yes, I agree completely. Do you have like what is your seating like in your ideal practice space? Maybe that is the space that you're using.
Yeah, I mean, and I've gone through a few different, trial and error situations or whatever. But what works for me is like a nice, I have basically like a no arm office. It's an office chair. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like very comfortable, but very simple.
Yeah, like a task chair, I think they call it.
Yeah,
right? Like it's got like rollers.
Right.
Or whatever.
And then there's rollers under it. So, I can I have some mobility, right? Some like locomotive mobility.
Yeah.
And also it can raise pretty high. Like I made sure that it had like the height so I can set it to different height adjustments.
Yep.
It swivels nicely, easy to use. Like I feel like, I'm in charge of my space.
Yeah. And you can get really decent office chairs. I mean, no one's saying like you don't have to go drop like $800 or $1,000 on a one of those. What's that brand? The kind I'm talking about. There's that brand of chair. It's like that super nice, the Aeron or whatever it is. Herman Miller. That's what it is. Nobody's saying that. Like you can go to Warehouse Club and you can drop $80 or $100 on a really nice office chair there that'll last you years and years and years. Might fit the bill.
Yeah, mine was definitely it was an online purchase and I shopped for a while,
Yeah.
but and it was brand new and I got it for $75 and it
Yeah.
works
That's perfect.
great.
That's perfect. I can tell you so I have I've got an office chair
Right.
that I use in my office space, and I'm doing recording in there, and sometimes it's my practice space, but not as often because it's for a bunch of reasons that, we're going to talk about
Yeah.
ideals, and, it doesn't meet a bunch of those ideals, but I often end up there. And so because
Right.
of that, like I chose an office chair that had certain features. So,
Right.
the rolling, like you said,
Yeah.
height adjustable, super important. And it also has arms that like flip up out of the way. And holy moly,
Right.
that has been the best thing, to not try and like scooch my way into a chair where it's like the arms are sticking down and the base body is bumping into them and
Yeah.
can't get comfortable.
But also to get the arms is nice because, like, let's face it, our practice space also tends to be kind of like an admin space.
Yeah, like you may be working on the business of being a bass player at the same time.
Yeah.
So having a chair that you can both rehearse or practice in and can be a good office chair
Right.
is pretty cool. Like I got mine at BJ's and it was just
Yeah.
like, I don't remember exactly how much. I think I paid $150 for it or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's kind of mesh, which is nice, breathable, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. Got these arms that flip up. And that was like a huge selling point for me. I was like, oh,
Right.
this is great because it'll work for work and it'll work for bass. But I got to tell you, where your butt is planted right now in the Practical Bass Studios
Oh.
also has become one of my favorite places to put my butt as
Right.
well,
Oh.
which my butt sits there sometimes too. Who would have thought? And that is a Roc N Soc drum throne
Right.
that I bought ostensibly for my son who plays drums, but I also like to use it as well. And it's
Yeah.
height adjustable, but also like it's really well padded and really comfortable.
Yeah. It's designed.
Yeah.
It's designed to like
It's designed to be sat on, like
to be sat on.
for
Yep.
a long time. Like
Yep,
you're
to
going to
have
be
that
on this
comfort.
for hours while you play drums, or in my case, bass.
Yeah. And there's something about these thrones are definitely like it forces good posture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can scrunch over on them if you want, but you're going to notice pretty quickly as opposed to, a office chair where you kind of lean back and you have that support behind you.
Right.
You're going to get more comfortable on the drum throne by having good posture. I think
Yep.
they do encourage that. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
And do you always sit when you practice?
So I don't. I also, for me, I really find it important personally to like, if I'm rehearsing for a gig, a project, that I get into the position that I'm going to be in, which I'm a stander. Like I stand at all my gigs for whatever,
Yeah.
because of the gig types that I do.
Sure.
Like, it's always standing.
Yeah, me too.
And I feel like the placement of where my bass is, getting used to like using my pedals, while I want to have that ability to jump off my seat and still be right there and not have to say, okay, I'm going to rehearse standing up, but I have to like go to another part of my room or
Yeah.
studio,
Yeah.
like that whole reset up. So I like having where I can, in a way where I'm at my practice space, I'm in my seat.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, good. Let me go knock this out like as if it's, lights on, real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then just stand up and have my space. Like,
Yeah, and just let that chair roll out, and then you can just like be
totally.
more like a real performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And and being able to move things around like that, I think, kind of points to another element, which is clutter.
Right.
And I'm probably not a great person to talk about this because I am not always great at keeping things clutter free. Like I think I tend to have more things around so I can have them within easy reach.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like if I were to really be honest about all those things, like some of them are things that I just don't need and I just haven't found a place for.
Right.
And just so that, the audience doesn't get worried. Like this is not like hoarder level. Like you're in my house.
Yeah.
It's not a
No.
hoarder syndrome or anything like that.
No.
It's just a typical like creative, messy person's place or something like that. Like I'm not.
And you have technology stuff, which is just like
Yeah,
like
and that accumulates.
that is but it's like a lot of it is useful.
Yeah.
And it's
at different times. Not always the time, not always now, but
right.
someday. Someday it'll be useful. But yeah.
Yeah. That's funny because the picture in somebody's head right now might be like, we've seen the show where like there's still one more path to get to the practice space.
Yeah.
That one path from like the door and then all
between
the way
all the
down between all the things. Yeah.
I've been in places like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's frightening. But just so people don't get the wrong impression, it is not like that. But
I think for any, like a lot of our, I mean, and I've seen so many different variations, especially with musicians who are typically like, I mean, we're artistic and we have passions about things. Mm-hmm. And I've seen everything from like the, super like cluttered just because there's just so much, going on in their head to like, even for me, I think in general, I don't have a lot of like, I like to limit the things in my life.
You're much closer to like the Zen garden side. But
even
spectrum.
If you get into like, if I don't know there's a guest coming, and if you get to like my bass area, like it gets, there's things.
There are things there.
There's cables, there's wires, there's like, it's, and that's just because we're spending time there. We're trying to like,
and there are things that you have to hook up and things you have to do.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think the ideal maybe is to have, you don't want things cluttering to the point that they are distracting you. Like you want to keep things distraction free. Like you probably don't want to practice in a space where, like my thing is, I don't like practicing in a space where I am reminded of other things that I need to get done.
Right.
Because that kind of takes me out of my head. And, is that avoiding? I don't know. But if I'm there to practice, I really have to put some time into that and put my mind in that. Yeah. I don't want to be thinking about work as much. And so, that's another thing about the studio is that, when I'm in there, I'm thinking about work. Right. So it's not an ideal place to practice because I'm thinking about other, I'm reminded of things that are surrounding me during work that I don't really want to be concentrating on.
Yeah.
So, another, maybe another thing is how to set up that space to make you feel happy and relaxed and productive. And, what are the sorts of things that you would put in that space to make you feel happy, right? Like here in this space, like our practical bass recording space, like I feel like when I look around here, I see lots of things. I don't see anything work related, lots of things that make me happy. There's bookcases full of books. Yep. There are, various pieces of musical gear around. There's, I don't know what else. That's really most of what's in this room. There's like an entertainment center. It's like this place is more like the place where I always come to relax.
Yeah.
And so I feel relaxed when I'm here because this place conjures those visions for me.
Right.
Like what the kind of, do you have any special things that are in your space that you're like, you find yourself attracted to or that you might look at or get, interested in? Yeah.
I've been in this thing of like collecting black and white photos from like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah.
Of like random, like just random people.
Yeah.
Portraits. And then they're usually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And they're only like 50 cents a piece. Like at any thrift, like kind of hip thrift store, they'll have like a box of them. And I just put them around.
And you just find somebody who catches your eye.
And I'm just like, this is like my fake family that's here everywhere with like weird, and I have like that 70s show couch, like the tweed couch, like my little getaway if I need to get away from practice for a minute.
Yeah.
Or if I get so tired from practicing, but I'll play my bass like on my couch.
Yeah.
Poorly.
Yeah.
Like those are things for me, and like I look at like lighting and stuff. So it's
about comfort and joy.
Some people like I know like my wife, if she had a bass studio, she'd have plants there. Like she likes plants. Like that's whatever that is that puts you into that happy place.
Right. Yeah. And so I think the key is like whether it's a piece of furniture or a decoration or a rug or whatever it is that like it makes you feel happy or inspires you, bring a piece of that in there. Like, bring something that's going to give you that, put you in that joyous place. That's something you're going to associate with, being happy and creative.
Yeah. Because practice is somewhat like meditative.
It's an environment. Yeah. You want to put yourself in an environment where you can get in that zone.
Yeah.
Right. And like, environmentally, there's the easy stuff like, obviously you want it to be kind of controlled, temperature, humidity.
Right.
Like you don't want it to be way out of whack. And
right.
for that reason, most places in a house work fine. I personally think like places that don't work as well for ideal practice spaces are like, a barn or an outbuilding that's not really controlled, like not controlled in any way.
Yeah.
Like you can get studio sheds and things like that. Those may work great if they have that kind of, a bit of climate control to them.
Yeah. I have to use because mine is in a basement, but in like the thick of winter, it gets a little bit like it's an older house, 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
So it just gets a little chilly. So I even have to have like kind of that heater situation. I don't leave it on all the time, but just to like take the edge off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it is important. Like, the temperature.
You want it to be a place that you want to be comfortable in for a couple hours and not, be worried. You don't want your fingers to freeze when you're playing. One of the obvious things that you want to have in your practice space is you want your gear to be set up, right? You want a bass that you love. You want an amp that you can deal with or some sort of system, right? If you can listen through headphones for bass, if that's your thing, that's fine.
Yeah.
I find like having an amp and having it moving air does something that I don't feel comfortable just practicing in headphones. I will do it and I can do it. That's not a problem, but it's not ideal. Like I like to feel a little bit of air moving without, it doesn't have to be super loud, just that feeling of it being in your environment. I really love.
Yeah. It makes a difference and it's motivating. It's like the difference of playing like a bad instrument and a good instrument.
Yeah.
Like when it's, when the sound is there, when it's actually, when you're feeling it.
Yeah, you feel good about it. And I, for my thing, I mean, I know you've seen this before. Like I have this, this little strap that sits on one of my amps. That's kind of like this Velcro strap where I can leave a bass standing right next to the amp. And so at any second, like if I get the yen, I can come down here, grab my bass. Like I don't have to go find it in its case and open it up and get it out and put a strap on it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's here. It's ready to go. All I have to do is, if it's active, I have to plug it in. And I even got in the habit of only using a passive bass to practice so that it would always be plugged in. But I found that, the basses that I was playing more and more were actives. Like they just happened to be active basses. But having a cable there that you can just, again, you have a power is set up. It's reliable. You've got a guitar stand or some way that your bass is like readily available. And you mentioned a pedal board.
Yeah. And it's the accessibility.
Yes.
It's like the difference of, you've been to like a friend's house who they've played the guitar or they say they play the guitar. And then you're like, oh, cool. What do you play? And they're like, oh, I'll bring you to it. And they take you to some like dark room. And then like it's in a case and they have to like take it off of a shelf and open up the case. And they're like, I know I have an amp around here.
Like, how long has it been since you actually played this?
Well, like in 87, I was really active,
Yeah.
and not that I'm knocking those, like it's not about that, but if you're an active musician, an active bassist, like that, it should be around because like, let's face it, as like great as practice can be, it's also one of those things that's kind of tough to jump into sometimes. We're just not in the right headspace.
Yeah.
So we need to take away like all of the distractions to and make it totally accessible.
Yeah. It needs to be something that you can, in a way, the more obstacles you put between yourself and being able to quickly sit down and start practicing, whether you're like whether you're in that mood or not.
Yep.
Because I find like if I start practicing, I will be in the mood after I practice for a little
Right.
while. Like, oh yeah, that's why I do this. I love it.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you're not feeling it, you may be feeling it after after you sit down and do it. And the more obstacles you have in the way, the less likely you are to break that first little barrier. So just, make it easy to sit
Right.
down and practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I even have like, I keep the pedal board like right there
Yeah.
in my practice space because I've been using a pedal board, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like part of my rig right now.
Yeah.
So I want it there so it's also accessible. So I'm
Right.
getting used to like what's on there and I'm actually like practicing that piece of it. And in a way where like, where I keep it is also like somewhat mobile. So like if I'm just playing bass, right? Because sometimes you don't want the effects, especially if you're just doing some like real practicing. You don't want the compressor there. You just want like straight bass through amp, flat. But then when I want to bring in, any textural stuff, that it's just right there.
You've got it ready to go.
Where I'm sitting and I can use it. And also, if I want to stand, it's also right there and I can stand and use.
Right, exactly. So I think one of the other things that people generally want is, especially nowadays, a way to play music, like you're learning something by ear or, maybe you're just playing along for fun. Maybe part of your practice routine is, hey, I'm going to do these scales. I'm going to do these etudes. I'm going to do these finger studies or whatever. And then I've got 10 minutes where I can do kind of like just free form, whatever. I'm going to play something just for me.
Right.
So, having a way to play that music is good. I have found like lately, I've gotten away from the idea of having a computer nearby, and I don't think this is a good or a bad thing. Like for me, I think it's because I spend the day looking at a computer more often than not. I don't want to see that all the time. And so the big gift I think that I realized I'd given to myself is the amp here in the entertainment system. It turns out has Bluetooth on it. So I can bring up some audio on my phone. I can bring up like, whether it's a YouTube video or, my music or whatever, and just play it via Bluetooth through those speakers.
Right.
Now I don't have to be anywhere near a computer for that to happen. I don't have to wire anything up. I just, hit the remote control on the amp and I can start playing music through it.
That's super cool.
And, they make obviously, you can get little Bluetooth speakers of all sorts. There's like the little Bose things or whatever, iHome, or it doesn't matter. But maybe that's a way that people might consider, oh, hey, this is a way I could do this and I don't have to have the computer. And it might not just because the computer is work, because it's not work for everybody, but the computers also have, has other stuff on it, like, oh, the temptation to go, oh, what's happening on Facebook?
It's a distraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is totally, because and I know that we had this conversation the other day, but the work from home thing, like for me, if I'm working from home, I just can't be near my computer.
Yeah.
Total distraction.
Yeah.
I have control.
Yeah.
Not that much control though.
Yeah. It's
and
so
and
easy.
It's the same thing if I'm playing. I'm like, oh yeah, let me like pull this up. And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, check out that. Oh, look at this. And next thing you know, you're like deep into the weeds and like
30. What happened to my last 30 minutes? How did I get here?
Yeah. Why am I?
What happened?
I've watched a lot of bassists. They're amazing. Yeah. I haven't gotten any better.
Yeah, I haven't played one note. Like I'm amazed, but I haven't done anything.
Those the people that I was just watching, like they put in a lot of hours of practice.
Yeah, and probably not watching themselves or anyone else.
Right.
Maybe they were watching themselves in the mirror as they got better.
Yeah.
But yeah, they weren't watching other people probably.
Yeah, which is cool because like, and I always think of, some of the bass lessons that I took years ago with this is a Swedish guy and his whole family's from like Sweden. They were like very streamlined in the way they did. And the rehearsal was basically a chair and a music stand.
Yeah.
And a metronome.
Yep. There you go. It's worked for hundreds of years.
Awesome.
So another point to make would be, how are you taking notes, or writing
Right.
down your progress? How are you like, what other tools might you need? I mean, one way, the obvious way, simply a notebook and a pencil or a pen, right? Just something that you can take quick notes on. Maybe it's it might be maybe a song snippet occurs to you, or maybe you're thinking, like, you may have a checklist that you want to go through. Like, I'm going to learn this, 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 and this today. I'm just going to make a quick list, cross them off as I get them done.
Right.
Or it might be, hey, I have an idea for something I'd like to learn. I don't want to do it now, but I'm going to write it down so I don't forget it.
Yeah.
Any of those things.
And it's good. I mean, there's nothing worse than like being in it's just to avoid the distractions, but to be in a situation where you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to jot this down.
Yeah.
And you don't have anything.
And now you have to disconnect, and you've got to go out. Oh, I got to go up to the kitchen to get this or whatever. And
right. And then you're like, oh, I should make like a fried egg. I don't know.
As you often do. Like, I wander away from my base, and suddenly my a yen for eggs
fried.
hit me. Fried. Only fried.
With American cheese.
Oh, yummy.
Where's the bagel?
That actually does sound
good. Yeah, I'm getting you inside of my
my
headspace.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
but we're in a technology era too, so like, the iPad is good to make sure you've got like a proper stand for that, if that's like what your notation is, or if that's where your music is that you're, I mean,
right. You might actually be practicing along to, there may be a video lesson that you're watching where you're actually like learning along with the lesson, trying things out, trying the study out or the etude or whatever it is that, is being demonstrated. So, there is some use in watching, in watching stuff. I don't think, we're not trying to make the point that you can't learn anything that way, but, if you got a stand in your practice space, it's going to help you. Like, you don't want to be kind of juggling that with your bass. Like, you want to have it sitting near you so you can have an effective practice time.
Right.
While you're following along with that.
That's right.
Right. And then I think, one of the last things we talked about when we were conversing about this earlier was, maybe you want to record yourself, right? I think that this is something that's really useful in practicing. Recording yourself makes you kind of listen to what you thought was really good, and maybe it wasn't as good as you thought. Like, in the moment, it can sound great. And then when you hear yourself back, you're like, ooh, that sounds really sloppy. Like, I need to fix whatever I'm doing there because it's not coming out the way I want.
Right.
The recordings don't lie. You can lie to yourself in the moment, but you can't.
That's right.
Yeah, the recording you can't lie about.
Yeah.
So
and there's many, there's so many different ways of doing that, whether it's like an external microphone that you have or something that you're rerouting where your sound is going so it's going directly to your computer.
Yeah, maybe you plug it into the iPad that you've got
right
on your stand. Like, you may have a unit that you could plug in. That might be worthwhile.
They have like those like
people.
iRig things that I've used that are pretty easy and they're cheap that you can do. And one of the we were talking about like, the amp placement and where that is. Like for me, I mean, it's like, it's kind of silly because it's like the whole rig now that I have stacked up because I do have a new rig.
Yes. It's glorious.
But
too.
my new rig is like, and it's huge and it's just pointed right at me, like right at my face.
Yeah.
So I can keep it kind of quiet and I still feel like it's big.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's not letting loose. But like I equally have a place where I'm going directly into an interface if I want to change that, right? Because sometimes my practice time is like at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like my family's just not into it.
Right.
And I can record.
We've
easily.
had enough.
Yeah. And I can have everything kind of plugged in and tuned in all the way. Everything can be thrown into my headset.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's good not just for the volume, but also, again, if you want to record yourself, it's going to do a lot better job of giving you like the highest fidelity for your sound. You're going to be able to hear yourself really well. And maybe those are things, if you have a teacher or if you have somebody online that you're taking lessons from, or maybe you want to share that for a review by the community or by people that you work with, you can do that really easily, right? Hitting record on a little, on a utility on your computer or on your iPad. and then being able to ship that anywhere is really powerful. So you can't, you can just use it for individual benefit, but you also can kind of extend that to, your overall learning plan. If you're studying with another better player, like somebody who has more mastery, you can kind of bring them the recording and say, here's something I'm having a problem with. Listen to this. Here are the things that are bothering me. Yeah. Can you help me kind of overcome that problem?
Yeah. Right? I've even shared like with like folks that are beginning or like at a earlier learning curve. I've literally gone home and like told them like, just give me till tonight and I'll do some of my practice stuff and just record it and give it to them and share it that way. Like a way to like share what you're doing with other people, for just to like kind of pass all that along. But I think the big piece is like, just make sure that wherever that place is that you like, we want to practice. Yeah. That makes us a better musician, that improves our value, that it is a clear difference. And we all know musicians that practice and musicians that don't practice, especially over time, right? Like those that practice, you can just tell they get better, they get cleaner, they get just quicker at, they're at the versatility of what they're doing. Yes. So make that place like nice and comfortable, approachable, easy. Yep. Like just totally a place where like you can at any point just dip out and there it is.
Yeah, that's really the key. I mean, it really comes down to that. Make it a place that you want to be, make it a place that you can get to easily and get right into practicing, and that you have the tools that you need in order to be effective there.
Yeah. And it's a win-win. You're a happier bass player and you're a better bass player.
And that's what we're all about. Right?
Super practical.
Taking it to the next level. That's right.
That's right.
I think we did that well. Okay, well, so I think that's a great place to end today's episode. And as usual, Dave and I, we love kind of speaking our minds about what we think about being better bass players. We are also really, really interested in your feedback. This is not just a dialogue between us. We want to have that dialogue with you. Please do send us feedback. We would love to hear from you on Facebook or in our Facebook group for Practical Bass. You can also send us an email. Very easy to reach me and Dave. Just email podcast@practicalbass.com. You can visit the website, practicalbass.com, and send us feedback there. We also have an archive of all of our past episodes. We have a whole previous season from 2017. We'd love to, if you guys want to download it and listen, and even if you want to talk to us about a back episode, we're always happy to receive feedback. We also hope that you will subscribe to this podcast. It's very easy to do, whether you have Apple Podcasts on your iPhone or your iPad, or iTunes on a Mac, or Google Play Music on any computing device, or Stitcher Radio on just about any device, or any number of other podcatching apps. Just look up Practical Bass and hit the subscribe link, and you'll get a fresh episode delivered to you every week for free, absolutely free. And we also hope you'll share this with your musician friends, not just bass players, but other musicians who might like to hear about some of the tips that we pass on that are really kind of general for all musical people, and people who are trying to take their musical life to the next level. So until next time, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
This has been Practical Bass.
Thanks for listening.
We really need a live audience for this show to be as good as it could be. Like, do you think Maggie would come and sit here with a Leo? They just be like, oh my God, you guys so much.
I don't know. How much eye roll can we handle?
Yeah, right. Just we keep looking at each other. It'll all be over.
Yeah,
soon.
like don't look.
Don't look. Don't look.
It's a lot of pressure.